Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. This is a 2-for-1. We're doing two podcasts at once. This is a Bear With Me podcast that Vanessa and I run regularly every week, and this is also a neighborhood table podcast for Table Radio, featuring Josh Wilton. So for those of you who don't know who Josh Wilton is, we've been friends for like a million years. I can't remember. We went to university together, but we didn't really know each other until we started driving buses in Alaska together. Mm-hmm. And we went to seminary together, Regent College.
Y2K, I think, is the beginning.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of, I think we bunkered together for Y2K or something like that. Can't remember. But that ended up not being a thing, so we're here now. And our families moved to Victoria together in 2009 to help start a new church, which is now the Table Church, which was really a precursor to Table Radio, which has started this year. and Bear With Me was kind of flowed out of that. So these two are kind of coalescing together because we're both talking about the same things. Bear With Me, we've been talking about creative engagement, and that's part of our Rooted series at the table. So several weeks ago, Josh kicked off this one, creative engagement. Vanessa, do you have the actual core line handy?
I don't have it exactly, but it's we long to creatively engage with God, culture, creation, community.
And one another, yeah.
And one another, because we believe in a God who is creative and restores and renews.
That's
that
like 90%.
That might even be better than what we had. Yeah.
So, taking this idea, Josh kicked us off a few weeks ago, and I wrote a summary of his sermon in about 3 or 4 sentences. Here it is. In Genesis 1, God frames and fills all of creation with light, life, goodness, and glory. Sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm. Genesis 2, he breathes his life and image into gardeners because he wants his creatures to take his good stuff and make it gooder. Those are your words. Mm-hmm. But in Genesis 3, the plot moves right along in Genesis. Humanity strays from God's goodness by sowing seeds of distrust, autonomy, and shame. And so enter the weeds, the toil, and the dust. But for all this, the original mission to take God's good creation and recreate with it is not undone, just complicated. And then you took us through a bit of poetry and Lamentations, which we won't get into now. But following up with that, Vanessa preached a couple Sundays ago on creative engagement. Can you give us a quick summary of what you talked about?
Yeah, I felt like the parable of the what is it called? Of great price?
Pearl of great price.
Pearl of great.
The parable of the pearl of great price.
No
There's
wonder.
a lot of P's.
Really captured for me what life is like creatively engaging with God. Kind of the idea of being a jewel merchant on the hunt for things of value. So instead of thinking first about, okay, what is the pearl of great price, which is the way I always have read that parable, like we're supposed to know what the answer is that we're looking for, I thought, what are the conditions that are conducive for being that kind of person who creatively engages with life and with God? And the 4 conditions that came up for me as I thought about it were time, like TikTok time versus Kairos time. Instead of aiming for success, I thought to be a creative person, I have to reframe things as an experiment where negative results are just as helpful as positive. Otherwise, I won't try new or hard things. I have to reframe my pursuit of knowledge or expertise. My instinct is I have to know more, learn more, get better, be good before I do stuff creatively. And instead, what I'm after actually as a Christian is wisdom, which is not something you accumulate or digest or consume in the same way. Wisdom I see as something we receive when we apply knowledge to our lived experience with time and reflection and the grace of God. It's something that we get. And then the last condition I felt like was to be a creative person, I have to recognize that I'm always trying to prevent pain. And instead of preventing pain, the creative call for me is to expect that there will be provision in pain. So instead of aiming to not get hurt, I aim to get hurt or know that I will. I'll get heartbroken. I'll pick up some scratches in the process. I'll make a fool of myself, all those things. But my trust, which reminds me of your sermon, talking about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge being a trust issue. I have to trust that God will provide what I need in those blunders and those heartbreaks, which frees me to live creatively, because otherwise I'll just want to withhold and protect. So those were like how my conditions, and we thought it would be fun to ask Josh.
Yeah, it was so the Bear With Me episode last week was so helpful just to kind of hear you the way you put it. You had 5 conditions on the.
I forgot one then.
You got a bonus one on the episode.
Okay.
For creative engagement in your own life. It was so helpful just to hear and very practical how it works out and how you think about it. We thought it'd be fun to do that with Josh because we know that he had a lot of photography examples that he didn't get to in his sermon and in even the neighborhood table that we had recorded after that. And so it'd be fun to take some time looking at that and kind of hearing what it looks like for him. So is he just going to go, or do you have questions?
No.
Or am I?
I think we should just ask him.
Great,
about
yeah.
creative engagement.
Ask away.
Yeah. How do you creatively?
It might be good to just give a little bit of a background for people who don't know. I went to school for a master's in theology and art to write a novel. That was my whole purpose for going to seminary, was so that I could be wiser, because I knew or I understood or believed that fiction was an act of truth-telling, and I needed to be more certain about truth before I finished the novel. So I thought, well, why don't I pair this novel I was working on in with my studies? And so that began it. And it was to be a photographic novel as well. That was much too ambitious, so I just stuck with a 300-page plus novel for my thesis.
You wanted to keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple for once.
Yeah.
And during that process, while I was writing the novel, then I got sort of suckered into the Anglican Church and church planting and the rest. A surprising venture. So now most people know me as a pastor, priest, church planter, but really my vocation is as a creative person.
Wow.
Like that is I see that as very transferable to the very work of church planting, is culture making. So this topic is sort of my sweet spot. This is my chief interest and how I live my life, I think.
So you didn't go to Regent to become a priest?
No, it was after, and then I had to get another equivalent of another master's to do this. So
wow,
it was a long time.
Cool.
At Regent College.
Yeah,
great, good times. But 7 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the process, I went to, like, as part of my art studies there, I also went to a place called Focal Point, which is a photography school. So I was all up in the photography and in the writing stuff. So this is all quite a side shift along the way. Katie Wilton, my wife, married an artist and got a priest. So that was quite a surprise for her, too, sort of bait and switch. I think she feels at times.
And I didn't totally realize you're as much into photography as you are into writing. Like, I think of you as someone who's writing a novel, but you both are part of your life.
Yeah, I like both. My dad and my mom were both creative types. Even though my dad worked at a bank, he was a cinematographer and a producer, director. So they were, growing up, we made movies all the time.
Wow.
My dad did. He did stop action kind of stuff. So with the old G.I. Joes, when he was growing up, one of his first movies was like one of those really tall G.I. Joes from back in the day. And he made movies there, and he won an award as a young person and for filmmaking. And then we have these crazy home movies where like all the toys come to life and chase out all of us out of our house.
Wow.
It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
All stop action stuff. And they were even in middle school, I think, or elementary school that my mom had wrote the script, and my dad was directing the movie called Seasons of the Heart, I believe it was called, and that was supposed to be a big screen movie, Christian movie. Mm-hmm. And we had Kathy Harrival was the lead actress, and she was a singer as well, and they had a trailer and everything, if I remember right. But then the financing fell through. This is being in the 80s. So I've kind of grown up in that zone. Yeah, but he was still a banker, my dad was.
Wow.
So it wasn't like all, kind of a creative family in that sort of movie scene where everyone's eccentric and always writing and drawing. It wasn't like that, but it's in my blood. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, so you said your vocation is an artist. You're an artist priest.
You know what? I would say my vocation, actually, if I was going to specify more, is a creative communicator and a culture maker. Those are the things I focus on in almost everything I do.
How does that, have you found that engages with your role as priest in a way that maybe it's different for other people's experience, both as pastors or as people having a pastor?
Well, it's a prophetic work. So I had to do an academic thesis in addition to the novel for Regent, and it was called, the title was called Fiction. Is it true? Is it useful? Is it justifiable? So to what extent does fiction tell the truth, and can a Christian, in the light of all the poverty in the world, can they really justify spending time doing art and that sort of thing? Which I can make available to anyone who wants to read it. I like it. It was pretty good. If I don't mind saying, I put a lot of time into it.
It still sounds so much like you. Like,
yeah, probably.
Is it? What are the questions?
True, useful, and justifiable.
That sounds like you.
Yeah, it does. Why? What do you mean by that?
Like sermon series
and
vision and stuff like that.
Probably.
Like where.
Or the negative side. Is this a complete waste of time?
Yeah.
Embarrassment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And the reason this is so poignant is because I spent much time on this Easter video, and there's always this sense of dissatisfaction afterwards. Like I'm like, did I really just spend my time doing that? Was that even worth it? Who cares? And that, like, is it useful? Should I even have spent my time doing that? And that's sort of the anticlimax to every creative movement for me.
Well, there's a direct parallel to how most preachers feel on a Monday. Or
That's
it's like the common thing, right? It's like all this lead up, this preparation, which could include prayer and thoughtfulness and crafting and study and crafting, and then the big moment, and then the what was it all? Did it do anything?
Yeah.
That's
Which is important, I think, tied into your point, Vanessa. It can't just be about the destination. It can't just be about the final product, or in many cases, maybe most cases, you will be disappointed. Because you have this dream or some ideal, and maybe the goal is to touch the heavens a bit, and or to represent or portray something greater and transcendent, and it's always kind of lax. And especially nowadays, where you can get so many pictures and so much music and so many videos, it's so accessible that your own work can just right, compared to that stuff. Yeah. But the role I remember is Nicholas Wolterstorff, Art in Action. That was it's a philosophy of art. And he talked about art making as being, creating worlds for people to consider. And so whether it's a movie or a song or some photos or a novel or a painting, it's telling you something about the world. It's saying, consider this as a possibility.
Well, that sounds like Jesus.
Yes.
And the only way he talked to the crowds.
Stories.
Yeah. About this alternative world and how different it is and how weird it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a great insight. It's not, some of us who are more modernist are looking towards propositional truths and how can a thing be true? And then sometimes it can get so focused on that they take the stories and go, well, here's the propositional truth, and make that the most important thing. But it's not. It's tied in with the very form of storytelling. And we see, like in the Gospel of Mark, he's constantly talking in parables. Well, throughout most of the Gospels, he almost never says things clearly, which is sort of fun. I like that. I think that's a feature, not a bug.
It drives some
as we
people
say.
nuts.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
But it tests desire, and will you pursue and will you seek? Yeah, I like that.
So how did that philosophy of art, Walter Storr?
Worcestershire. It's not Worcestershire. Yeah. Well, he says, if there are is the world being projected, then we ought to consider what it's saying, and we either assimilate it or reject it. So you think about certain movies that you really like and some that you don't. Well, why do you not like certain movies? Maybe let's say there's a violent action movie and you're not into that. Well, you don't you don't want the world to be one where there's so much violence and blood. Right? No, I reject that. And I don't think it's good that people can laugh at somebody's hand being cut off or something in a dark comedy in a Coen Brothers film or something. No, I reject that worldview, right? And on the flip side, some people just can't stand sentimental.
Yeah.
They're like, that's not the real world. I intuitively resist it. And other people are like, no, I'll just watch movies and consume them, and they actually change how you think and feel about things without you knowing them. So that it becomes a problem of consumption, and we sort of ignorantly just assume other people's philosophies that are embedded within narrative. It's pretty cool. So Walter Storr, or maybe it was some other people who were talking about art, had said that this is the artist, the creative work is prophetic in nature, or can be, and you can have false prophets and true prophets in there. It can just be commercial as well. I mean, just to bang a buck, but fundamentally is saying something about the world. Is that fun?
Yeah. It's super interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of what we talk about on Bear With Me is the need for a shift in imagination and how challenging that can be. Like a good example is propositional truths don't provide a shift in imagination. It's the storytelling. It's getting into some of the details. You brought with you today some photographs.
Yeah.
And it would be fun and interesting for us to hear kind of what the creative process is like for you. You just talked about spending a bunch of time and resources and energy crafting an Easter video, which has some overlap with some of your photography stuff. But do you want to walk us through some of this?
Yeah. There'd be a good point, like even for the video. So I woke up for 3 sunrises. So first of all, I had 1 week to do all of the video because I was so focused on the audio. So the fact that there are 3 sunrises, 2 genuine sunrises, one was kind of cloudy, which you both were at, like that already is a gift. And sort of that creative stress that you go, well, I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know what the sunrise is going to look like, and I'm not a sunrise guy because I'm sleeping usually. So I'm like, I have no idea how to film these. So that creative stress kind of fuels me. And one time I'm like, I'm not going to go. I already got some footage for the first day. No, it was the first night. And I felt like, I'll save it for Tuesday. And it did feel like something divine, where God says, no, I know it's late, but you're going to wake up early. Just go on 5 hours sleep, whatever. And I did it, and it was total payoff. And then there's the moment of being there in the sun. And this is where time is so important for the creative thing. I made the time, I showed up. But also, I get to be present with the sunlight. So that's that present experience. And then I also get to be present with the future because I'm imagining what this is going to look like on film and how it might be used. And also, there's the element of surprises. I know what's here now, what I'm seeing with my eyes, but I don't know what the camera's going to pick up really and what it will look like after you put it in the video software. So there's the element of surprise too. So you get to be in the present and in the future all at once. And then when you get to that future moment, you get to be in the present and in the past all at once. And so it's bending time. And that's the fun part for me. Yeah. And then it begins to say something beyond itself. I think maybe that's the trick, is receiving it on both ends, on sort of the horizontal and the vertical way. On receiving a sunrise as a sunrise. Like being in the moment. And going, this is a thing, and let me attend to the intensity of the sun and how I'm going to have to film it, like the technique and the technical elements. It requires that, because this is a material thing. It's a thing in the world that exists outside of myself.
For you, is there a testimony element to this? Like, this is what happened. This is what I got to see. This is what I get to share.
Sometimes a testimony element, but more and more I'm thinking it's more of a hidden moment. Where it's not just about the production, it's about my own life of prayer with God. That something, what's that word, inchoate, chaos, unformed is going on, where I can just be in that unformed element of it, because I'm spent so much time putting words to things and articulating things, that this is the space where I go, I don't know, it's just kind of an ooze, and I'm just going to let it be inchoate, unformed. And I like that. So that I don't feel, now I've learned I don't have to feel all the pressure of putting words and form to something. And it's not just about utility for other people, but there's a utility, a usefulness for me personally. And I can separate those two, because if I get too focused on the utility for others, that's where I get judgmental. I'm like, this stinks. You know? But that one part is just for me. So thank you, Lord.
There's something bigger. Yeah, I like that. There's something bigger here than just I'm just producing something for a bunch of people.
So that's the horizontal thing. And I go, there is an interaction here, not just with the sunrise, but the one behind the sunrise. And then what does the sunrise say, and what does it communicate?
It reminds me of, the image of Psalm 1 with a tree planted by the water. It's like there's something bigger here. The fruit is for the benefit of others, but you're not, there's something bigger there than just producing fruit, even though...
Yeah, Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glories of God.
Yeah.
And from them the speech goes forth.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big psalm. In fact, we should just open it up just so we got something from the Bible in here.
Oh, good idea.
This was very tied into some of my studies. It came up a bunch, because there's not a lot of direct passages about creativity in the Bible, but the whole thing is creative.
Yeah.
So the heavens declare the glory of God. This is Psalm 19. And the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words whose voice is not heard. The voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom leaving his chamber, and like a strong man which runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and there's nothing hidden from its heat. So that's Psalm 19, and then it goes on, the law of the Lord is perfect. So you've got the two books of Revelation, as they call them, one of creation and one of the scriptures. They both speak about God, but they are tied together. So
are you saying Psalm 19, like those, the sky pours out speech? Is that what it says? Pours forth speech?
The heavens declare the glory of God, yeah.
Are you saying that you read that or interpret that as there's just this end in itselfness about the sky being the sky, and about you being there for the sunset, apart from, like, let's say the camera wasn't on, and so you'd have to figure something else out for Easter Sunday for us. But
if
you
like
still
the camera
had
didn't work.
Yeah, something like that. Like, what part are you relating to Psalm 19 about the horizontal and the vertical, and the inchoate and the...
And this formed and
the
structured?
Formed.
Well, it's not just about the sunrise. It's about the sunrise saying something beyond itself. Right? it's not ignoring that there's sun rays and that the clouds are there and how the light changes, but it's never forgetting, or it's always keeping in mind that God is speaking. The heavens do declare the glory of God. And a lot of us get that, especially here on Vancouver Island, that sense of transcendence and even imminence when you're out on a nice walk or you're watching a sunrise or a sunset.
Yeah.
You get a sense that something else is going on. And even I think the staunchest atheist is going to still have to talk themselves out of that feeling. Like, oh, I know what this is. It's a chemical reaction in my brain. I've been adapted and evolved to have this sort of experience with the sun and so on. But there is that sense of it. Yeah.
Do you want to walk us through the process of photography?
Yeah, and you know what? The photography is different than a lot of other things because it literally is a snapshot. Like, it's a moment in time.
Yeah.
And so I feel, though overall I'm very critical of even a photo, there's always more work could be done. There's more of a sense of finality in them than with writing, I think, because I could always revise a new scene. And it might be just because if there's 330 pages of a novel, there's so if it's one picture, it's like, well, I can just focus on that and get it done. And here I'll show you, I'll post these all like in the video. But so we're in Haines, Alaska. I'm trying to think if Katie McDonald was there. I don't think she was. It was a different road trip. I was on a road trip, and we were just outside of a place called Haines, Alaska, in Klukwan. It was a cemetery, and there was this statue of an angel, well, human angel, I don't know. You've seen that. And it was fascinating because the thing that catches your eye right off the bat is this very sort of white, it's a statue. But then it's also merged sort of with creation, and then you've got mildew or mold or whatever that is on there, some kind of moss. And so I circle around, it caught my attention just being so bright and something so green and dark in the cemetery. And so from the one view that you've got, Andy, it's one picture of humanity, right? Yeah, I showed Vanessa this, which is quite a serene look on this angel human's face.
This angel child.
Yeah. And boy, isn't that nice and sweet. But then when I moved around it to get a different angle, Vanessa's got the one that's got a clipped wing. Like one of the wings is broke off, not by design.
Right.
And I thought, well, doesn't this also say something about humanity? Yeah. And then I zoomed in, and then we've got this piece here, which is even more bleak. Because then you can see the cobwebs, the spider webs, and it's almost completely erased the sort of buoyant smile of the face on the first picture. And these describe humanity and our condition. But I had to attend to the details. But here's the thing. When you get there, just like when we were at the sunrise with the clouds, you go, oh, here it is. This is the moment. And you lose time there because you know the moment will pass. And so I hyper-focus on whether it's the sunset or this statue and just get as many angles as I can and compose it as well as I can. And then in the case, this is black and white, so you have no idea. This is, for you young people, you have no idea what's on your film until you process it, which is also a big surprise.
Yeah.
And then, like for the clipped wing, it was overexposed, so then I had to dodge it in the dark room so that you could really see it wasn't just white. You could see that it was broken off. As opposed to just designed that way.
Right.
So then it's really looking at the details too and going, oh, is this too dark? Is this too light? What is it communicating? And how can I highlight the subject or something else, some idea? So it's a big ball of fun.
So were you so happy with these when they came out?
These are some of my favorite pictures. Now here I'll give you another example of something that says more than it is. This is that was on the Chilkat Pass. This is on the Chilkoot Pass just outside of Skagway, Alaska. And Andy will recognize this instantly because this is the top of the Chilkoot Pass where we gave tours. And these are trees, these little trees that look like little bonsai trees. Well, these things grow in an inhospitable environment. And the rings these are like 100 years old. Their rings
tiny.
are so dense.
Oh.
Right? Because they just don't have enough nutrients to grow big, but they're still growing. And I think this is, even now, when I think of flourishing, I think just surviving sometimes is victory.
Yeah, like there's that one tree and it only has some branches up at the top, but like everything else is sparse.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in there for scale. These aren't very big.
These are not big.
Yeah.
No, not as tall as a human.
Right.
Oh, they're not?
No.
Oh, I was seeing them as very tall.
No, they're hundreds of
maybe-
years old, and they're small, scrawny
Wow.
trees.
Oh, maybe up
That's
to my
weird.
waist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
But if you were to burn them, they would give off a lot of heat as long as they would last because they're so densely packed. Really high BTUs, as they say. I can't remember. This is tour guide information. Here's another one. This one Katie Wilton did back in her heyday.
Yeah,
she did a
cool.
double exposure. So back then you wouldn't have photoshopped this. This is, again, you have no idea what's coming out. You would just take the same piece of film and just two shots on the same piece. So she did one of stairs in the winter with some snow, and then one of mannequins. And this is like Jacob's ladder. This is Stairway to Heaven to me, of angels will ascend and descend, which then goes into John. So, and then it also points me towards Revelation. This is just stairs and a mannequin, but now it's turned into something quite different, right? So that's sort of a fun one.
Yeah. What's the footprints one?
Yeah. This is a frozen lake up in the Yukon. But this, again, sort of communicates to me that we're walking on a tightrope between light and dark. And just the way it exposed, one of the sides was darker than the other. And then, it looks really nice with the blue in color, but it doesn't point beyond itself as much as this. Right? So even stripping out color is not natural. So now you're saying something else just by the very act of taking out the color. And it gives you a chance to highlight or focus on something. Even though snow is not black.
Yeah.
But as I was driving here, I'm like, I would defend this. I'm like, this is a great photo, and I'm very happy with it. And those are my steps in this.
You look like a Yeti.
This you only get these steps when it's starting to thaw. So the fact that there's a lake that's thawing, you can see the crack there, and it's slushy on top, like a big Slurpee. And that's always kind of dangerous too. It's just fun. It's sort of a fun danger.
So I heard you say surprise a few times. That seems like part of what motivates you or energizes you for being creative.
Yeah.
And then point beyond itself. That seems like a marker of either good art, good photographs.
Yeah, that's sort of the soul of it.
It made me think of these are parables.
Mm.
Parables of
Oh.
human condition.
Yeah.
The trees too. Or what survival or thriving can look like, just like survival. It's interesting. I was thinking okay, for the non-photographer, what's transferable here in terms of living a creatively engaged life? You said paying attention to what catches my attention and then attending to the details.
Yeah. It was on sabbatical 2 summers ago where we were up in the Yukon, and I don't even know what I did with my time because I didn't read, I didn't sing, I didn't listen to music. What did I do?
I think you were wrapping yourself in mosquito netting.
Mosquito netting, maybe. I did stuff, but I spent most of my time doing photography. And it's there I realized there's some principles that carry over very easily. And the first rule of photography is just show up. Half of the pictures I have I was just there. It's not like I went and planned them. Like the one with the trees at the top of the pass, that's a route we took all the time on our tours. And for some reason, maybe it was like a scouting trip or I don't think it was even on an actual tour. The lighting was just right, and I took the picture. It was not that sophisticated. It's framed really well, which is kind of accidental or sort of intuitive at a certain point. All of these are just, I would just happen to be there. I didn't plan the angel thing, the angel statue. It was just there.
There's sort of an assumption in all this that if you show up, that God is present in some way or revealing himself or his glory in some way.
That's right. Is to show up, and then the second part is don't miss the moment. So being able to go, what is the moment? And so I'm driving down here going, boy, this is really crummy lighting right now. So I'm like, is there a way, though, that I could take pictures for this and get a good photo out of this? Maybe. But no, the moment would be, this is the time when you edit your photos that you did get during the better lighting. Do you know what I mean? It's not every moment is time to go take a shot. So show up. Don't miss the moment. And then the next thing that does relate to this overcast day is chase the light. Like everything is light. Photography literally means painting with light. I mean, graphing with light. Yeah. So it's all about the light. And then tied to that is not ignoring the darkness, because the shadows are the things that emphasize. Like the trees in this photo are dark. And it's set in contrast to the light, and in sort of an inverse, unexpected way, because you think light is good. No, snow is not good for life. And the thing that is alive is the dark bit. That's already interesting. Subverts our assumptions about light and dark. So I also think that the drama, the interplay between the light and the dark, is the most interesting part. And so I've learned from actually the photography and the sabbatical, I don't want peace. I want drama. I like that. That's why I'd rather be in the Yukon than Hawaii. I like the unexplored places. Well, guess what? If you're going to go to unexplored places, there's going to be mosquitoes. And you have to fight. And then you're forced to go, how do I reconcile the fact that this is so beautiful and so evil, so opposed to human thriving in this case, with all the bugs? So I like that, and I think that plays out in many a good story.
Yeah. You don't have to be a vocational artist to apply this to life.
No, it's like what you were saying, Vanessa, about avoiding suffering. If that's your goal, what an uninteresting life you will have. I mean, most of the good things that we do involve some struggle, right? I mean, we treat education that way. That's a struggle, but it produces something good. And in the same way, it helps me reorient. In fact, I'll give away the novel, the very ending. It's in the third person, he. But the narrator is the fictional is writing about himself in the third person. So at the very end, the main character says, "God, I asked for blessing and you gave me tragedy," and then the character thinks, maybe I should write a tragedy. And then the narrator, for the first time, says, yes, I should write a tragedy. So the whole book comes out of that tragedy, which is my own lived experiences, fictionalized. That you wouldn't actually have any of that story apart from the struggle, right? And his assumptions in the character in the novel couldn't have been upended apart from being in those desolate places where he was challenged. And he saw the logical end to some bad ideas he had and bad relationships with himself and with God and with others. It was part of the struggle. So show up, don't miss the moment, chase the light, pay attention to the shadows. I think those transfer over to everything, every kind of work and relationship.
Do you have some regular way in your life where you make space for doing this, or do you just consider it as something you do on the go? Like any given day, you might wake up to a moment and you might act on it. Or do you have, how do you set aside time to like cultivate this side of you?
Well, I'd first, in my young 20s, set off time to write a novel and nearly went nuts because I was in the Yukon by myself for 7 months, and that didn't work out. Because it was a big block of time and it wasn't specific enough. And I remember back then, I had this mistaken view of inspiration, which I mean theologically means being breathed into, right? The spirit is present. But sort of on a biological or physiological level, it's like, oh wow, this is fun, I'm into something, right? And then I'd write some, and I'd be so stoked about it, and then I'd go, okay, let me take a break, and I'd go play guitar for an hour. And okay, let me go read a bit. And then it's like the moment's lost. And I was so good at starting new chapters and new novels. I have so many new novels I started. But it's actually the hardest part is following through for me, to finish the chapter or to keep going once you hit the hard spot. You can see that with relationships, and it's easy to, the first part is the funnest. And then someone irritates you or worse, and now you go, what do I do now? Right? It's easy to back away because now it's actually going to take work. But so now I go, I have, any time could be a moment, whether it's working out, taking long showers, even if I move my body, just getting up from the computer, just walking around.
Cooking, I
have so many ideas. Not really cooking as much for some reason. Usually because I don't like being in the kitchen. I like the results. So then I usually watching a show or something, doing something else.
Oh, yeah.
But any kind of quiet place. And then I have to build it into my schedule with other people. Like now's the time to sit down with Andy or with Vanessa. We have our regular time every week or every other week. And then ideas come, and they're big bursts, as you've experienced, Vanessa, right? Like big bursts of things. But it might take a lot of time to get there, which is most of our early retreats when Andy and I would get away.
Yeah. This is in pre-pandemic times.
Pre-pandemic,
Yeah. It used to be.
What's your experience? Because you're a creative guy.
Oh, thank you.
That's what I hear.
It's true. We should be interviewing you.
But you've been around me for so long.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly surprised you don't just ditch me because my follow through is not always is
Where
not
else
very
would
good.
I go, Josh? Where else would I go? I think we've worked together well. I think we're just. It's funny. I think we have an interesting combination of a lot of overlap in terms of personality, and then also a lot of complementary difference, which works out well.
How do I not drive you crazy though?
I think that I don't know. I think we just understand each other. Like I know that when you've got lots of ideas, I know that I can't jump on them all. And I know that you know that I can't jump on them all. So there's that sort of understanding. Like the expectation isn't there that I have to take this big idea that Josh has and run with it. And that's freedom for me to know that I have that we can work that out and that sort of thing, because there's too many ideas.
Yeah.
I'm also married to someone who has a lot of ideas. So there's a lot of practice.
You're
there.
getting them from both ends.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. Lots of ideas. Not enough time. So, yeah, I think we worked those things out pretty early on. Starting this from scratch, from our community, from just moving here and trying to figure out what it looks like. So and I do notice that's where people who work with you have to learn that, or else they can get into trouble. Where they're like, oh, Josh expects me to do like, well, I don't think he does. I think he was this was the brainstorm, like there's a lot of ideas stage. You're kind of free to say, ooh, I like that one. Let's go do that one. Or to say, no, I don't think I can do that. Yeah. So I think I'm comfortable there.
But that was difficult for you, right?
Yeah.
Took some getting used to.
Yeah, I remember, just a feeling of like a whirlwind coming in the room is what it has felt like sometimes to me. Just like, wow, where did that come from? That is totally not on the agenda. Enter whirlwind. And the whirlwind wasn't you. It was kind of like the visible, like ideating that is happening. And kind of like growing bigger and just not knowing how to relate with it or what this means.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember early on working with you when I did kind of identify like, oh, like he's an artist.
Yeah, that was helpful.
He's a creative. Like if I approached you like a pastor,
CEO,
a professor,
CEO of a church.
Yeah.
We're doing this and this and this and this.
Then I'd be totally like kind of caught off guard.
Yeah.
But if I thought like, oh, he's like a mad painter or something.
Yeah. Mad scientist.
Or filmmaker,
for sure. Yeah.
director, or something like that, then it's like, oh, okay, that's the genre that's present here. That was helpful.
Yeah. And it's trying to figure out ways, if you're like this, I'm not manic all the time. Like I'm, right? I hope.
No.
Okay. But I do, when I get the ideas, they do come so fast and so furious.
Mm-hmm.
But the follow through is not great. And so that's something, I think it's trying to protect the treasure that is in a creative person and somebody who thinks very fast and widely, letting that still be a gift to a community or to a group, say staff,
Yeah.
but then not on the other end trying to protect other people so that it is not threatening too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So where do I need to be especially attentive to? So if we've got a staff that's high order right now, which is very good, but that means I've had to be, and through our conversations, Vanessa, seen the impact that I can have, and when I don't follow through, go, okay, that's outside of the bounds. It's stretching too much where it will break. So can I adapt? And because I'm creative, I tend to think, yeah, I can adapt. I can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I feel like you adapt a lot.
Good. Yeah. Some things I'm like, yeah, that's not changing. I'm never going to be a sunrise guy. I can't
Attending
see
to
that.
the details.
I was thinking about that, Andy, because that'll be a charge against me, and I reject it. Attending to details. That I don't attend to details. I do. You can't get a video done without attending to details. I'm very administrative. It's just not what I like doing unless it is unless it is administrating the thing that I like doing.
Yeah.
I'm very particular.
Very particular, I would say, in some things.
Yeah, but if I don't care about it, I don't, like, who cares? Someone else make the decision. I'm just so uninvested. And that's why, Vanessa, you've shared, I'm either there or I'm not. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I have to keep my attention somewhere. If the thing's not keeping my attention, I go, oh, shoot, do I need to fake it so somebody else knows that I care about them or what? How do I trick myself to being more present? But then that's where it ties into don't miss the moment, right? I think that's where I've come in the last few months. Don't miss the moment. What is this moment? This is attending to details and showing people I care about things that aren't just my own investment, but our investment. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, I love the idea of a church as a mini culture and creating space so that the artists aren't squelched or pushed out or something like that. But that feels like such a creative process in itself to figure out how to make space for all types. And I mean, I remember watching the Good Friday, was it Good Friday or Ash Wednesday?
Probably Ash Wednesday.
Vigil, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Easter morning and thinking like, wow, thank God we have this. Like we have you in your sweet spot with all the time and energy it takes, and that we don't snuff that out because I need something on an agenda that was already prepared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the quick processing part about you in particular as a creative person, I think that's one of the parts that's hardest for me, is just not being a quick processor, or not in the same way. And so understanding what's happening, you know? And I know, like, Risa is a friend of ours, and she's so different than you. I would say she's also a quick processor in a different way, and I have had such a hard time kind of following. So letting go of following while trusting the process, just as like a companion, feels like part of the invitation to doing church life together is, for me, is letting go of knowing where this is heading a bit and just letting it happen.
Mm-hmm.
There is that balance of, like, you need enough disruption, but enough continuity, right? And if it tilts over too much, and when you've got a group, then like, what's the range of the group?
Yeah.
You might have more or less range, depending. You have to adapt. And this is why it can't just be about the ideas. It can't just be about the creative person. It's got to be about what God is doing creatively within a group and for a moment and for a season. So I think that's where we work best, when we go away, usually after Easter, and go, okay, what's the next year? And then we'll get comments from here or other places going, wow, you guys are very organized and planned out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that meant what we were like canoeing around a pond for a couple hours. And then Andy canoeing or paddling, and me just going, hey, what about this? and then Andy having some ideas, and there you go. But it took a bunch of time to get to that big burst.
Yeah.
This has been good.
Yeah.
We're at time, but Josh, thanks for being on our Bear With Me podcast.
Yeah.
And thanks for having us on your Table Radio podcast.
Yeah, happy to do it.
At the same time. We'll put the images in we'll paint links into our show notes so people can see it if they're not seeing the video. But any last words from you two?
I don't know. And any for you? I'll think.
Pay attention. Tend to the details. You do
Don't
that
miss the moment.
Just showing up. Don't miss the moment. Chase the light. And you say, pay attention to shadows.
Yeah.
Pay attention to
the darkness.
Shadows. The darkness. What's happening with the darkness? It's good.
And there are always things there that you cannot see that film picks up.
Yeah, we didn't get to that.
Yeah, I just remembered.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. That's the part of the surprise.
Yeah.
That was the surprise.
Film picks up things that you don't see.
No, either by selecting out light or now.
But stuff that's
introducing
there.
it.
That's definitely
It's
there.
not there. Yeah.
I like that. That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. This has been fun.
Thanks.
And either way, we'll see you, or you can listen to us again next week. Right?
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And either way, we'll see you, or you can listen to us again next week.
Bye.
Bye. Great.
How long was that?
53.
Wow, what?
That went by so fast.
I was like, it was 45, I just started, we're just going so good.
I didn't even